away that curved part in sort of a step, what we call a step lens. They've chopped away sections of it to make it a thinner lens. Does anybody have an idea of where they might have seen a lens like this before? Especially us here on the beaches and stuff. There's not many of them left around. Yeah. Lighthouse. So the Fresnel lens became used because they used it in the lighthouses. So they were trying to create a more lightweight lens, and I think the gentleman's name who invented it is Fresnel, so that's what they ended up calling the lens. Okay, and again, this is a spotlight. So again, we're talking about something that we can use to kind of focus in our attention. So this is a Fresnel lens spotlight. They're usually lighter and smaller than ERS's. They have variable beam widths. Moving the lamp closer to the lens makes the field wider. Moving the lamp away from the lens makes the field smaller. Let's see. The idea with this one is that it creates a very soft pool of light. So I don't have the shutters on this one, right? You guys don't see those 4 shutters? So all I can do with this one is basically create a pool of light that's either bigger or smaller. And the idea that it's talking about here, where it's talking about moving the light away and closer, so this one has a big old lamp in it. But the idea is that there's either a crank or a wing nut that lets you move the lamp further or closer to the, I don't know if you guys can see. It's not moving very well. Ooh, this one might not be broken. But the idea is that this whole train moves further away from the lens or closer to the lens. And you get either what we call a spot, which is a very small pool, or a flood, which is a very wide pool of light. So you really only have 2 properties there. You can't put a gobo in it, you can't shutter it, but you can control the size of the pool. And again, it's a very soft edge pool of light compared to we talked about the ERS having the hard edge. All right. All right, so to get over the fact that we don't have shutters on this, we still occasionally need to cut it off of scenery. So this is going to get into an accessory. That we might talk about here. So we don't have shutters, but we might need to take some of that soft edge off of scenery. So this is an accessory called a barn door. So in this one it's talking about the barn doors. This is what it's talking about. The name sort of makes sense, right? It kind of closes like big barn doors, and you open them. So that helps you control the light when you don't have it inherent in the actual fixture. Again, I might call these fixtures or units, that kind of thing. But that is a barn door. So if you need to make yourself a little drawing of what that is, that way you know what it's talking about when it says using barn doors. This is an alternative. This doesn't help us control the light so much as maybe shield the light a little bit from the audience's faces. Like if I have these on all the lights in here, it sort of helps mask the lens of the light from what the audience's eyes see. So it can kind of help cut down on the glare. Sometimes it can help control a little bit of the flare. Like there's always little errors or a little bit of light that doesn't quite go where you want it to go. Like even with the ERS, you might end up with a little bit of flare or highlightation or something like that. This can help you kind of contain it. Or your light is right next to a drapery and you kind of get that glow on the drapery. And if you put this on the light, it can help you cut down. This is called a top hat. So again, pretty uncreative of us with our little names. They kind of make sense. So this is called the top hat. It's also in, I think, might be called a snoot by older designers, or from people in Europe and stuff like that might still call it a snoot. Kind of the idea would be a nose that you put on the instrument. So top hat is more often what we refer to this as. Okay. All right, and again, you're going to want to know that you would use this because it gives you a soft edge circle, or the availability to make that pool smaller or larger, the ability to vary the field width. Okay? This reflector, so we talked about the ERS being an elliptical shape, the ellipsoidal reflector spot. Again, the shapes might be something you guys want to key into, but the spherical reflector is what this one uses. You can see that it's just kind of part of the circle here. So it's got a slightly different shape to the reflector. And again, for those of you who are more curious about the physics of it, this is how the light reflects out through it. So you can see it's spreading out much, much more, whereas that little drawing of the ERS shows a very focused beam. Okay? I jumped down a little too far. All right, then we're moving on to the PAR. Again, this little handout has the longer names of everything. So we just call the Fresnel, or a 6-inch Fresnel. This specifically was a 6-inch Fresnel. Again, we kind of refer to things as far as their diameter of their lens. So this is a 6-inch Fresnel. We might have, I think, some larger Fresnels up in the air, you can see. Those are 8-inch Fresnels. Again, the diameter of the lens is larger. So we tend to distinguish the size with that. So now we're moving on to what we call the Parcan, or the PAR. And you can see up there that it's also the long form of it. It's parabolic aluminized reflector. Now the reason we sort of call this a Parcan is the idea is the PAR is basically not this whole unit. This is basically just a can that we put the actual PAR lamp in. So if I open this up, take the socket off, this is called a retaining ring that kind of holds it in there. But the PAR is actually just this. This is the whole thing. This has the lens, the reflector, and the filament or the lamp all as one whole self-contained, what we would normally think of as a light bulb. But it's not. It's got the whole thing right there. The reflector, the lens, everything. So the parabolic aluminized reflector, again, the name kind of indicates the shape of the reflector. So this is a parabolic shape of the reflector. You can see in this drawing, so our last two drawings, the very first one was very focused. The next one was a little bit wider. If you look at this one, what's happening with the light? Basically coming straight out of the reflector, right? So whereas the other lighting units are more of a cone, this is more of a column. So the idea is that this is like it starts spreading out a little bit as you get the distance from it, but the idea is that it's a much